oh, you figured this out on your own. I'm like, yeah, they brought me in, trained me a little bit, and then I was bidding on like $1 million jobs. And the crazy thing is, like, my bids might be a little bit higher, but then they were the ones that actually were accurate.
You're listening to the Blacktop Banter podcast, the premier podcast in the asphalt industry, made for contractors with contractors.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Blacktop Banter. Into a good run of consecutive episodes. I'm stacking them up, I'm going to be honest with you. We got a good friend on today, have another great friend, a longtime friend on after, and we're stacking them up. We're going to be running in a conference season here coming up. You're probably listening to this during conference season, and we're figuring out how to make all this work over here at Blacktop Banter with a crazy schedule this off season, and still bringing content to you that is valuable and content to you that is entertaining and can hopefully add some value to your journey and your life along the way. My guest today is absolutely somebody who has brought a lot of value to my life, not only in my business and in my multiple businesses, but just as overall value as a great friend, and has always been a great friend. I'm a hugger, but I realize not everybody is a hugger, so I don't come in for it right away. That filter does not exist with John Pajak. You are going to get a hug. It's going to be a big one. Be ready for it, because next time you'll be looking forward to it quite a bit. How you doing, John?
Oh, man, I am fantastic, Marvin. It's great to see you again, man.
Dude, we had a great time. We recently were in Louisville together, and I'm going to be honest, it felt like old times, man. I was explaining to people, like, when I first came down, like, I didn't have much money to come to GIE, which is now Equip Expo. And one night I slept in my truck. Not a lot of people know that. The next night, one of our friends, Ring, let me sleep on the floor of the hotel room. And, I met Keith down there. Keith just spoke at the time of this recording 2 days ago at the Blacktop Banter KM meetup event in Michigan, which is just kind of coming full circle, right back to it. But those early days, big dog, you and I were down there, dude, hashing it out, exchanging hats. I still got my Turf Tamers hat up on the wall at Wiscoat. I mean, we've had a good run, friend.
Yeah, that's an old school one, man. We didn't rebrand, but we changed colors on the coloring. So you probably have a green and white one.
I do,
with the orange logo. So those are the OG ones, man. They're all orange. All our uniforms now are orange and white.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, going down memory lane like that, it's so funny. When we ran into each other this last time in 2023 in Louisville, that was just like, hey, man, I just saw you yesterday. Let's keep talking and doing everything that we did, because it's been a while, but we've had contact in between then.
Correct.
But I always feel like we have that bond. It's that strong bond to where we may not see each other for a very long time, but we could always just pick up right where we're going, just get a few details in there and be like, hey, man, what's new? Oh, great, man. That's awesome. I'm so glad for you. And then we just it's just like, what the biggest surprise for me was the kids, how big the kids got in that.
That's the only time you know how time passes, really.
Oh man, that was just, I couldn't believe, like, Eli just,
so we used to do those Snapchat. We used to have a Snapchat group, which now the world knows about, right? Because I've spoken about it. We had Triplet on and Caleb and all those guys on, and Naylor's going to be on after you. And like, Eli was a baby. He was a baby, and he's running equipment now. Low key, he drives truck from like the few blocks from our lot to the Wiscoat office. He'll drive a truck back and forth. Elizabeth's in high school. She's going on a mission trip with me this summer. I mean, it's time has passed, but yeah, the best part about it for me is when I can bring them and they recognize you all, right? And they're like, and they remember, like, you are an intricate part of our family, our lives, right? Getting to that point, it's a lot of fun.
So it's just it's the same thing, like, on our side. My daughter's gotten much big. She's 9. She's going to be 10 in like 2 weeks. And the crazy part is, it's just how even our families, like, a lot of guys don't realize it, but when you get into a group of people that are inspirational and they keep you motivated and they also keep you accountable, it's not just affecting you, it affects our families as well.
Correct.
Because we would spend so much time in that group just going back and forth that eventually my wife's like, what are you doing? Like,
Yeah.
and it's like, what are you looking at? And it's like, she's not like that though.
Marvin.
Okay. I just emphasize it, but it's like, she's
Marvin.
like, hey hon, what are you doing? And I'm like, there's a Snapchat thing. And I met up with a bunch of people that, we kind of got put together, and we're really kicking it off. And like, I remember we would do it like on Saturdays and stuff. We had a whole theme on Saturday, and we'd have daily themes, but like the wives would know about it, and they'd just be like,
they knew it was coming.
Oh, it's shirtless Saturday. It's like, what? We're not going to explain that one, but it's just funny.
In the world? But that, to be honest, like it was weird when we all got put together because we knew something was coming. For some reason, Naylor kind of knew that we all knew it. And then we knew that if we figured it out, it would create opportunity for things for us in the future. And really, back in the day at those conferences is where I learned about a community within an industry, because you all had done it very, very well. Whether or not there was a pissing contest or whatever, it doesn't matter. Everybody was connected. And for me, that made me feel a lot less alone. I was an outsider coming in there with y'all, but you made me feel part of something. And that really was the inspiration for me to start doing what I was doing, creating Facebook groups, starting the podcast and networking, attending my own conferences in my own industry was literally that one. I didn't go down there for that, but that's what came out of it. So part of Blacktop Banter success is because of John Pajak and company. Man. So I really appreciate that.
I would emphasize a lot of the company too, because it's not just me.
No, it's a collective.
Joe DePace really kind of helped put that group together too. He suggested a lot of things to Naylor, and he said, hey, put these people in.
Yeah.
And it just worked, man. It was like perfect.
It was magic.
So yeah, it was. It's not like we could reproduce it. We tried.
No, and we've tried. That moment was a moment in time, was a glorious thing. What we've ended up doing here at Blacktop Banter is I've taken a lot of what I've learned from our group, which was a mastermind, essentially, right? And that mastermind instilled in us action and instilled an atmosphere of progression. And we've done that with the Blacktop Banter Success Group here, which are now there's up to 25 or 26 members. And we do the same thing. We do a chat group 24/7. We meet up and do FaceTime, Zoom calls 3 times a month. But it creates that community that you and I had and our company and moving forward. But it's great to give credit to that and to the people who put it together and the people that were all part of it. But we had to get somewhere to get to that point, and that's why we got you on here today. I would like to figure out John Pajak as a young child, right? I'm talking 4 or 5 years old with rosy cheeks and a full beard. Growing up, what was it like for John Pajak?
You as you get older, you start looking through a different lens. If you would ask me this 20 years later or 20 years ago, I would have had a slightly different viewpoint. But when I was about 4 or 5, that's when my parents got divorced, and it was not a good time for me. I had a little sister. She was, she's 3 years younger than me. And I remember there was times when, things were really tough. My parents were split. My dad was amazing because he would always make sure that he would pick us up on the weekends. So my dad was there, but he was just, because of the divorce and everything, it was splintered. But he was he still is a great father, because all the way through until we got old enough to like kind of move out and everything, my dad wanted us there every weekend.
Yeah,
he wasn't just like, forget this. So I still had that. I had dad in my life, but a lot of times early on, my mom was kind of, she didn't. Both my parents were very young when they had me.
Yep, same.
I think they were like 19 and 20 when I was born. And, you got to take it with a little perspective. They're both still young. They're still
super young.
There's nobody gave us a book on how to run our lives.
Bingo.
That's why right now we're seeking other people like, hey, when I grow up, how could I be like you or whatever? But anyway, it was tough. My mom, she really struggled. She was always, she had all these restaurant jobs and things like that
Mm-hmm.
just to, she
Make
was a
ends meet.
manager at like Pizza Hut, so it wasn't
Mm-hmm.
even a fancy restaurant. Um, it was tough.
If you're in
There's
Southwest corner of Wisconsin, Pizza Hut is fancy, buddy.
Well, yeah, I mean, I grew up in I grew up in Calumet City, which
Yeah.
is a suburb of Chicago. It's just
Mm-hmm.
just south of it, and
Sure.
Al Capone used to come and lay low for a little while in Cal City when he was
Dang.
under.
Dang.
But long story short, things were kind of tough. Like there was times when just to make sure my sister was eating, I would give her a can of beans or something, and I'd eat dry dog food, and
Oof.
yeah,
Yeah.
it wasn't fun.
Yep.
So, you know, there was a lot of great memories though. Like I don't, again, there's going to be a theme that runs through this. I'm just seeing it already happening. Um, if I didn't go through that, I wouldn't be it wouldn't
Bingo.
have led me to the things that I'm going to be
Yep.
in every stage of my life. I had to go through suffering and pain
Yep.
in order to become who I was in that chapter of my life.
Correct.
So a lot of during the weekdays, like if my dad didn't have us, it would be split between my grandmothers,
Mm-hmm.
to kind of watch us, because
Mm-hmm.
remember this is back in like the
Oh yeah.
the early 80s. So if you
Yep.
were like if you could walk around, if you could talk, walk, and make
The
sure you don't
world.
burn down the house, like you could stay home by yourself.
Yep.
So
Same thing. Yep. Yeah. My grandmother raised me. My mom and dad were in their teens when they had me. My grandmother
mhm.
adopted me, and she was like, "I gotta go to work." And my babysitter was Mario and Luigi, man. It's like,
Gotcha.
and if they got bored, then I went into the woods and played whatever I was gonna play and come back. And sometimes she would be back, and I would be coming in at dark. And
Yeah.
if there was dinner, if there was anything, which we lived on government, so like yeah, I
hmm
had either had goulash, which was just noodles and canned tomatoes, or fried pork chops. And to this day, John, I can't eat a fried pork chop to save my life.
Oh wow,
I'm done.
you're missing out on some good
No,
ones.
I'm
I
not. I
understand that
had
though.
plenty. I had plenty.
Yeah, I mean I understand, because I mean again, the funny thing is, a common denominator there is the woods
Oh
really
yeah.
kind of helped raised and form my earlier
Oh
life,
yeah.
because
Our
that
minds
was the
could
one
run
thing.
wild, right?
Exactly, we could do
Yeah.
things. There's this whole like one of the preserves that we had around out by us had this huge sand pit,
Oh
and we're
heck
trying
yeah.
to figure out how it even happened. And I think what happened is like years and years and years ago, it looked like a crater impact,
Heck
but
yeah.
we think it could have, we of course we let our minds go wild,
Yep.
thinking like, oh, the sarlacc came out of it,
Oh
or
hell yeah.
or
Oh
something like
yeah.
that,
Get
like
the stick guns and the pine cone
exactly.
grenades. He's going down. Yeah, I
Yeah,
love that shit.
yeah, it was a deep one too, and it was pretty big. But I think what ended up happening was there was probably like a ripper in the woods with a bunch of teenagers, and they just started digging this big mound.
Probably
So,
doing donuts with 4-wheelers.
oh yeah,
What
you
about?
couldn't you
Go
couldn't even
ahead.
get in there. You only could only walk into
Oh
that,
shoot.
and it
Okay.
was it was like really dense woods. So
Man,
that's
so you get that's kind of the basis, but John Pajak that I know is fairly intelligent. You go to school. What was school like for John Pajak?
it's pretty typical. Except like I was always in honors classes, like growing up.
Yep.
I got into high school. They took that aptitude test to figure out where you're going to go. I got all
Yep.
honors, everything, like
Yep.
math. Just it was, I'm not boasting here,
Yeah.
but the funny thing is, freshman sophomore year, I was, pretty much straight A's.
Yep.
Junior year hit, and I don't know, I had this little rebellious streak in me, and I decided I'm not going to this homework is stupid. Like I do
Yes.
well on the test. Why do I have to spend all these hours,
Yep.
focusing on the homework? And then I just would get bored with it. So I wouldn't turn in homework.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember like by the time I got to, like my junior year was like my nosedive year. I didn't care. My parents weren't really paying attention as much. My mom would be disappointed, but she was busy doing other things, trying to make a living.
Yeah.
And eventually, it was so funny. I was still tutoring
Yep.
others in English class, right? But I was I basically got kicked out of honors English. And I remember my
That's
senior
typical
year.
John Pajak. That's the funniest story because that's how I think of John Pajak. Oh shit.
Dude,
Yeah, this is
it
how you
was,
should do it. And
yeah,
is it working? Yeah, man, it's working great. Cool. I
yeah,
don't do that, but this is how you should have done it, and you did it, and you did it great. Congratulations. Yeah, yeah.
exactly. I wouldn't tell my daughter to do it this way, but
Right.
at the same time, like, this is me. And then I remember my senior year, just as a quick little wrap up, I ended up, I was not in honors English, but they
Mm,
were friends of mine that were still in the honors program.
yeah.
They had to do a report on ode to a Grecian urn.
Mm.
And I'm like, nobody. These are friends of mine that all know. I thought they were way smarter than me,
Yep.
and they're like, we can't figure this out. Like, they just had the class, and I'm like, okay. And they're like, we got to write a paper on this. We don't know what to do. And I look at there's a couple of them around me, and I'm like, oh, it's like a moment in time. The whole point of this ode is to capture a moment in time because it's forever on this Grecian urn. It's not like
Oh, okay.
it's just depicting a single moment so that you could remember it. And then they're like, oh, I'm like, I just read the damn thing and you asked me what it's about. And I just
Yeah.
told you, you guys spent like an hour collectively on this and you couldn't figure it out. I'm like,
Yeah.
whatever.
So John gets to that point. John, you were a teacher, correct?
Yeah, I was.
Yeah.
Um,
Take us there.
before that, I got sick. I was going to college, but I ended up getting sick. I had to come home and everything.
Mhm.
That didn't really go very well. But
What were you
anyway,
going?
long
What were you going
story
to
short,
college for? What were you going to college for?
originally I wanted to be a doctor, but my
Oh, yeah.
grades sucked, so I had to go to because I screwed up my academic career. I had to go to a community college to
Mhm.
try to get my associates. Then I'd have to like fight and tooth and nail to try to get into a medical program.
Yep.
That didn't end up working out, but what came from it ended up working out because like after college, during college, whatever you want to call it, and after my sickness, I ended up just working for a lawn care company. I worked
Oh.
for a lawn care company and I worked midnights at Dunkin' Donuts. So I was really burning the candle at both
Oh,
ends,
heck yeah.
just trying to make
You had
bills.
plenty of
Well,
carbs, though. You had plenty of carbs
oh,
to
yeah.
get through the lawn care, baby.
Yeah.
That's what-
Yeah. Bacon, egg, and cheese or sausage, egg, and cheese croissants were my
Croissant.
favorite.
Oof.
Get croissant. We got to get
Mhm,
fancy
mhm. I
croissant.
can think about it right now.
But anyway,
We divert.
going back, get the train back on the rails,
That's right.
buddy.
That's right. That's right.
But what ended up happening was, I was in lawn care. This is in the late '90s, working for somebody else,
Yeah.
and what it ended up doing. And this all actually going in order. This actually makes a lot of sense to me now. I got a little bit big headed, and I started thinking like, I'm running crews for this guy. I could do this for myself.
Yep.
Okay, great idea, but mistake number one. I had no business acumen whatsoever. Like I could be a smartass about things and just kind of go through and, once the concepts are explored with me, then I'm really good at it. But at that
Yep.
point, I just thought, if I go into this, I could make some more money instead of working for an hourly rate.
Right.
I think I was making $10 an hour back then. I guess it was good, but you know, I just had a lot of bills I needed to pay for medical.
sure.
So I'm like, all right, I need to do that plus live. So I ended up starting my own side hustle. I bought a couple pieces of equipment and Marvin, I crashed it.
Yeah.
It was terrible. I was
Yep.
not getting paid. I was just losing customers left and right because I wasn't billing properly. I wasn't, I was focused on the work, but not the actual business side of it.
Right.
So I crashed it. And luckily I was able to kind of sell off the equipment I had and, get everything kind of leveled out so I wasn't in debt.
Mm-hmm.
But I went, I was still working for the landscape company that had me as a crew lead. I decided, all right, I'm going to go to the school. They teach massage therapy. I became a massage therapist. So I was going at night.
I remember now.
You remember that?
I remember, yes.
I'd go to school at night, work all day, and then like 6 o'clock, I had to be in class. I go to class till like, 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. After I graduated from there, I did it and I had like basically like perfect attendance. I might have been late a couple times, but I never missed a day. And that's pretty hard to do when you're juggling and you got to drive, 40,
For sure.
almost an hour to get to school. And shortly after that, I was really getting burnt out with the lawn care company. And finally, there was an opportunity to teach at the same school I went to. And I was like, yeah, I'll do that. So I ended up leaving the landscape
Lawn
company,
care. Yep.
came into with the college at the time, and I started out as like a lab tech, which then moved into being an instructor.
Yep.
And then they needed somebody. I needed more hours, and they're like, "Hey, we got a bookstore manager opening here," and I'm like, "Yeah, well, I'll do that too."
Yeah.
Well, I thought I was just going to graduate into that, and they're like, "No, you got to still do the other stuff too."
Oh, yeah. So I got to lift this too.
So I'm like, okay, well, that's the bookstore manager is kind of hard because it's like this thing runs all day.
So there was the dean, the professors, and John Pajak. Pretty much.
Kind of like that, yeah. I mean, it was a...
I'm incredibly proud of the Blacktop Banter Edition seal coating unit produced in partnership with KM International and available in both 550 and 700 gallon versions. Custom built on the same frame as their bulletproof hot boxes, I work closely with KM to design what I believe is the best seal coating unit on the market, a unit designed by a contractor for contractors. Learn more about the unit and to see a walkthrough of the entire unit by visiting kminternational.com.
If you're serious about efficiency and performance, listen up. The Craftco SuperShot 125 is not just a melter, it's a strategic pavement maintenance advantage. Quick startups, fume-free, automatic agitator shutoff, a splash-proof lid, and pumping on demand, these features are essential for any serious asphalt maintenance contractor. So don't settle for mediocrity. Elevate your game with the Craftco SuperShot line of melters by visiting craftco.com today.
In my opinion, Dynapack CC900G roller is the best roller on the market for driveway and small parking lot paving contractors. The seismic technology in these rollers is unbeatable for the smoothness and compaction they provide, and I choose the Dynapack CC900G over the little yellow roller that you're used to seeing every single time. But don't just take my word for it. Check them out in person at Pavex and World of Asphalt, or visit Dynapack.com to find a dealer near you.
Hey Blacktop Banter fans, this is Michael with Aquafault. Say goodbye to potholes and roadway damage without the need for large crews, heavy equipment, or toxic chemicals. Aquafault is the only permanent repair material for asphalt and concrete that uses water. And installation is simple. Just pour, add water, and tamp. It's that easy. An Aquafault repair can be open to traffic immediately and fully sealed within 24 hours. Plus, the product is backed by a 3-year warranty and made in the USA. Visit aquafault.com. That's AQUAPHALT.com to learn more.
In the past year, Jobber has been our CRM of choice at Wiscode, and it's made our world exponentially better efficiency-wise. The request to quote and quote to invoice process is seamless and professional. The scheduling aspect keeps us on point and the team leaders moving throughout the day from project to project, while the timesheet feature tracks the team members' hours. For our small seal coating company, it has helped build the solid foundation we can scale from. Jobber is now a sponsor of Blacktop Banter and helps bring this show to you. With this partnership, Jobber is offering an exclusive savings to BB listeners of 20% off for 6 months. To take advantage of this, find the Jobber link in the show description and get to improving your process today.
Hi contractors, it's Kyla from Wiscoat. We use Stencil Plus for all of our pavement marking stencils. Alphabet letters, numbers, directional arrows, handicap markings, you name it. We use it and we get it all from Stencil Plus. Right now, for a limited time, you can save 10% on your stencil order by using code BB10 during checkout at stencilplus.com or by calling 877-372-6055.
Contractors, you need to make it easy for potential customers to reach you. Get a custom phone number from the 800 Pavement Network and plaster it on the side of your trucks and rigs, and I guarantee you'll see increases in leads and jobs booked. Get yours by calling 1-800-728-3636.
World of Asphalt is the leading asphalt trade show and conference, and will be taking place on March 25th through the 27th, 2024 in Nashville, Tennessee. From mainline to maintenance, the show will be your one-stop shop to see everything the asphalt industry has to offer. Registration is now open, and listeners can save 20% off registration with the code BB20 when they register on worldofasphalt.com.
So, and then they added another, as I'm going through it, they put me in charge of like the AV stuff for, it's nuts because like every month they'd have a graduation. It wasn't like you go for a full semester.
Oh, okay.
They did everything in modules.
Yep.
So you come into a module, you didn't have to know anything about the previous one, and then you would just cycle through until you went through all the modules. So people were graduating, and we'd have people coming in every month.
Yeah.
So we'd have like these graduations and then these intros every month, and I was responsible for a big chunk of those.
Right.
And it was very stressful.
You're stressed out right now. Just even thinking about it. I see.
Yeah, dude, man. I'm like, it's like post-traumatic stress.
Can I get a break? Can I get a break?
It's like,
really?
Dude,
you're not there anymore. You're not there anymore. Come back. You're not there anymore. It's okay. It's okay, John.
Isn't it funny how that is? It's like even just talking about it, it's like, so powerful. But the last straw with them, and I shouldn't say last straw, but there was an opportunity that they really, really wanted me to be the director of education. She's like, I really need an assistant, and you're the guy. And I was like, okay. And it really became a joke to me when I started watching The Office. I was the assistant to the director of education. So basically, I was like Dwight Schrute with the whole title thing. It was just funny to me. And at that point, I just remember the previous president. He was kind of like on his way out, and they gave me this. It was so bad. Like I was so busy. I was getting ready for one of the new incoming waves of students, and they were like, hey, listen, we need to pull you off of what you're doing right now. We need you to set this room up for a conference we're having. It's going to be all hands on deck, and I'm like, so I'm like, I have to set up like one of the largest classrooms they have to accommodate all the teachers and all the office staff and everything.
Yep.
And I'm like, all right, fine. I really didn't want to do it, but they're like, you're the only person that could do it, and everybody else is busy. So I'm like, all right. I go and I get that whole room ready.
Yep.
They have the meeting, and I'm in the back, like, working on something. I'm working on like an Excel spreadsheet or something to make sure we got everything in line for all these new clients or customers, or not customers, students.
Yep.
I got to get my words right here.
They're all the same, really. Sometimes
they are. It's just a different setting. But all these new students are coming in, and then they're like, okay, they go through some normal business, and then they're like, okay, now why we're here. We want to congratulate John, and like, hey, because they didn't call me Pajak. They would always torture me and just say John, and I'm like, there's like a million Johns out there. There's only one me.
That's right.
But they were going on, and they were like, okay, here we got this plaque for you, and I'm like, oh, thank you. Like I walk up, and to preface this, I had just found out like about a month or so earlier how our campus could save like hundreds of thousands of dollars per year with our finances.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I list it all out. It's this huge elaborate thing, and I give it to the president of he wasn't the dean, he was the president. Of the campus, and I give it to him, and I'm like, hey, listen, this is what we could do. We could save a bunch of money. And all the department heads were there, and they're looking at it like, oh, this is great, like this is going to be awesome. And I didn't hear about it for a little while, but then until I see this plaque, and they just were talking about it while I was in the corner talking about my, worried about my Excel sheets. They were congratulating the president on, saving the campus so much money.
Oh shit.
And that he got this big ass bonus, and he got like all this stuff. And I'm like, oh no, like, I'm like, I didn't even hear that. And they're like, yeah, didn't you hear? You were right there. I'm like, I wasn't paying attention to anything until you guys called me. So then I get up there and they're like, yeah, do you want to say a few words? And the plaque is actually like, it was nice because it just said like, hey, here's to your undying dedication to us and blah, blah, blah. And I just looked at it and they're like, yeah, say a few words. Cause I just wanted to grab it and go. I was kind of like at that point where I was just like, I don't want to be here right now.
Damn.
They just basically told me like, or, I just said, thanks for not stealing stuff. And I like kind of walked away and they're like, all right. I'm like, I'm just sitting there. I'm just so winded by it because they, yeah. And then the worst part is like after the party, they're like, yeah, can you get this all cleaned up for us? I'm like, you
Sons of bitches.
like, I'm sitting there and I'm like, I remember talking to the president. I'm like, listen, all these things that I've done, like, is there any way? I wasn't even looking for, I was like, is there any way we could just get another bookstore manager to be here at night so I don't have to be here from like 7 a.m. to like 9:30 at night? And he's like, it's not what you've done for me. It's what you've done for me lately. And those words resonated with me so hard. And I was just like, I didn't even react, dude. I just looked at him and I was like, okay.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I remember that was around my 30th birthday. And I ended up going to, my buddies were like, hey, let's go to Vegas. And I'm like, I've never been. Let's go. I didn't care. I was like, HR was like, oh, you can't do that. You can't take, I didn't have any
Like,
PTO or anything.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'm going. And they're like, you can't. And I said, I'm going.
What you've done for me. It's what you've done lately.
And I remember on the flight over there, I read this book, 48 Days to the Life You Want, I think is the name of it. And I had them, and I just was like, I'm done. I'm done with them. Dude. I'm going to give myself a month to find another job.
Damn, man.
And I felt so unappreciated.
Mm.
I was, it was so bad because, I'd done so much for them.
Yeah.
And they weren't even paying me well. When I remember when I was leaving, some of the department heads were like, yeah, you are a department head. Did you know that? And I'm like, it doesn't matter at this point. I'm like, yeah. They're like, you should, like all the department heads are making like over 60K, like anywhere between 59 and 64K. And I'm like, you guys know I'm struggling over here. I'm working a bajillion hours in overtime and I'm barely making 32K.
Yep.
And it was bad. It was like when I first started there, it was like $10 an hour or something. It was something stupid low. And I think it was $12.25 when I left.
Damn, man.
So
that's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah, but I still have that plaque and I keep it. It's not on the wall. It's in a box, still all wrapped up. And it's a reminder not to.
Yeah, we ain't going back there. Yeah, we ain't going back there. Yeah.
No, it's a reminder. Don't let people talk to you like that. Don't let people just disparage you in any way. You got
to find your own value.
Better things.
It's tough. Yeah. That's a tough thing to do too. To be honest with you, like determining your own value and finding your own value when you care about people, right? And you realize that they don't value you as much as you should value yourself. That's a tough thing because I know you're a caring person. It's like, yeah, I want to help out because I want it to be easier for you. Right, like you're just a caring, giving person, and sometimes they take advantage of that, and it stinks quite a bit. But that was a transition then at that point, right? You go to Vegas, decide you want to kind of do your own thing, and then here we go. We're off and running with entrepreneurship.
Well, actually, there's a little detour, and I'll keep it short. But I ended up going into construction, and I was a union laborer for multiple years. So I was like, I don't care. I'm going to go out on a shovel. I had a pretty nice gig where, I could massage, doing massage and everything. But I went into construction and being on the tools for probably 2 years before anybody discovered that I had a, working brain cell in my head. There was
if that's not the construction industry in a hint, in a moment, I don't know what is, dude. That's the funniest shit I ever heard. Like, no one even noticed me or that I had even a functioning brain cell for 2 years in construction. Welcome to Blacktop Banter. Welcome to the asphalt industry. Welcome to construction. That's funny.
And I am not bashing on anybody, man.
We just got shit to do, dude. We really don't care. Like,
no, it's just like, I don't care if you got a PhD. They're like, you were a teacher?
Grab a shovel.
Yeah, get a shovel, man.
We're
Let's go.
freaking trying to build something here. Like,
Right.
I don't
And I
explain to me
did
how to build it. Just move your body in a way that stacks
exactly.
blocks or shovels holes.
Yeah, because I mean, like I was on a road crew for a little while, very short amount of time, but it's just like get on the shovel and let's go. Let's get
Yeah,
those
for
spoils
sure.
up. Like make sure you got everything ready.
For sure. Don't tell us
I
a
don't
better
care.
way to do it. Just do it
Right.
this way, so we can get it done.
We just need to get this done. We got 40 miles ahead of us, and then we got to double back and do the other 40. It's like, yeah, I
we
got
gotta
it.
flip the other way.
So, but anyway, I got into that, and I was working in the heavy industry. I was doing, oil refineries and steel mills, and then finally, it got to the point where, like I said, one company decided, hey, you seem like a pretty okay guy. Let's. I started with as a timekeeper.
Okay.
For like all the crews, which was, like 50, 60 guys at a time. And of course, if you want to make sure guys get paid right, if they're supposed to get their check, it should be right. Move a little bit fast forward. I started to do estimating. One of the guys is like, man, you kind of got a knack for this thing. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, oh, you figured this out on your own. I'm like, yeah, I kind of did.
Mm-hmm.
They brought me in, trained me a little bit. And then I was bidding on like $1 million jobs. And the crazy thing is, like, my bids might be a little bit higher, but then they were the ones that actually were accurate. Instead of bidding it lower. Like there was this one in particular that was like bid out at 1.5. And I came in and I said it was going to be 2.3. And they're like, man, that's a hard sell. Like, how are you coming up with this? I'm like, because I worked in the field, I understand what some of the possible problems are going to be.
Correct.
And because I'm familiar with this area, I know that there's like not landmines, but there really are, like especially in the oil refinery. I'm like, there's pipes that are buried there for like 50 years that have no blueprints.
Yeah,
we know we're going to run into them because I was working over there last year.
So then you're able to job cost, right? You're able to job cost what would happen if you ran into those, or what it would cost to avoid those.
And that, I mean, that's what I would do. I would sit there and be like, look, we're going to include the land survey where they x-ray the ground.
Yeah.
We're doing that. Well, that's a lot of money. I'm like, I don't care. We're doing it because it's going to pay off later. Would you rather an excavator hit a pipe and cause millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars in damage, and we got to shut down the refinery because of it, or shut down a portion of the refinery? Or would you rather know that there's something there and we could really pick around it very carefully? We're going to have to dig there anyway.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I would kind of put those into my bids, and my bids were more accurate than any of the other three estimators.
That's wild.
So it was kind of cool. Like when they had me do it, I was not working for that company though. I was still, they're paying me as a laborer.
Right.
Again, dumb.
Right.
Because as soon as like some of those big jobs were done, like I was on a bid for an entirely, it's a huge bid, company that it was a multi-year job.
Yeah.
And lots of moving parts. I helped bid on that, and we won it, and it got built, and it helped our entire community. That's not nuts. Just immediate community, but like stretched out. I mean, as far as the refinery reaches out, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you get what I'm saying, it's like you could be 20 miles away from there, and it still affects
connecting.
People.
Yeah.
So I was pretty happy about that, but as soon as that job was kind of done,
you use that estimating that you had learned and brought in when you started your own business?
Exactly.
Okay.
So like after all of that was done, again, I realized that I shortchanged myself because I was working still as a laborer, getting laborer's wages and as a contractor. So I didn't have security.
Right.
And they were like, okay, our big things are done. We're going to like let you go. You're going to go back on the field. You're going to go back on the shovel and everything. And I'm like, all right, I get it. And then it just got to the point where there was a series of events that were happening where I was getting hurt and everything because other people weren't taking the same precautions that I would. I would always be looking out for their back. If they were on safety watch, man, they'd let my air monitor ping. They'd let, bad things happen. The stuff was falling down holes and hitting us and stuff. It was bad. Mm-hmm. So I got to, my daughter was, a couple of years old at the time, and I decided I'm done. She's like 2 years old. I want her to actually have memories of me. I thought I never got killed in the lawn care company. So I'm going to go ahead and start that up. And that's when we come pretty close to normal here, or current date, where I started Turf Tamer Lawn Care, and that has been profitable since day one.
Yeah.
Based on, and here's how it goes. It's like, based on all the things that I went through previously,
Correct.
I
All
applied
you had
those to my
learned.
business
Yeah.
and became profitable. And then going up until, I think it was, I started getting really involved in like the Facebook groups, and this is kind of where you and I were starting to interact and everything. I think it was like 2016, maybe somewhere in that area, 2017. And I was helping out other business owners on those Facebook groups and things, just trying to help them. And
Yeah.
I think it was 2017. That's when I came out. I actually had this name in my head, and it was called Budgets, Break Evens, and Bottom Lines. And that's what turned into like my workshop. That is now, it's not like, oh, the know your numbers, man. Because, everybody and their mom like says, hey, you got to know your numbers. You got to know your numbers.
Our industry has always been 8 to 10 years behind the green industry, and now that is coming into our vocabulary like a plague. Hey, know your numbers. You gotta know your numbers. Okay.
Yeah. What does that exactly mean, though?
Tell me what numbers, and what do I need to know about them? And then when you get somebody, and you're like, when you get educated on it, and you regurgitate to somebody, they're like, that's not knowing your numbers. And then you're like,
Right.
Oh shit. Well, what is knowing my numbers? Right. And then you get another iteration of it,
Yeah, because it's almost like I could say it. There's like many levels of knowing your numbers.
For sure.
You could be just starting out. Okay, what does it cost me to just operate?
Yep.
You might not know that. Okay, maybe we're advanced in there. Okay, what are your KPIs that you need to be paying attention to make sure that you have sustainable growth? What are those numbers like?
You don't even care about it at that point. You just want to know, what do I give my tax person?
Yeah, exactly.
Right away, like, what do I give my tax person?
I remember, and the part of this too is I remember years ago, this is before I started Turf Tamer, but I went back to my failed business, which was Johnny Boy Lawn Care. Paul Jameson always cracks up when I say that name. But looked like you were ready to go. But I'm like, what's so funny about that name?
I picture Johnny Boy as like 5, 6, 7-year-old with a full beard.
Yeah, exactly. I even had an icon or a logo. It was actually kind of a smiley face kind of guy pushing a mower. But anyway, you got to dredge those up later. But I remember I was like, I'm going to get an accountant and everything's going to be good. I'm going to be official. I had this huge manila folder full of like stuff, and I handed it to him. I'm like, look, I need to make sure I know what I'm doing here. Go over my numbers, please. And he's like, okay, I'm going to have to give you a call back, sort through all this stuff, and then I'll give you a call.
Right.
I go back over there. He calls me. I go back over, and he hands me my gigantic manila folder, and then he hands me 2 pieces of paper. I'm like, what's this? And he goes, that's your taxes. That's what you owe in taxes. I'm like, okay, I'll sign that. I want to make sure I do that right. And I go, okay, what about the rest? He's like, what do you mean? I go, aren't you going to tell me like what I should be charging and all that other stuff? He's like, we don't do that.
Yeah.
I'm like, you're an accountant. He goes, yeah, we don't do that.
Yeah,
so that was another thing that led to my program now, to where I could help other business owners. And that name, the Budgets, Break Evens, Bottom Lines, just kind of rolled off my tongue one day. And it was at GIE 2016, I think.
Yep.
And then the next year, that's when I started. I was doing a lot of training for free for a lot of the YouTubers, which I'm not going to name, but in the lawn care community, like think of like back in that time, think of the bigger YouTubers that were out there.
And then who it is.
You know who it is. And some of them come forward and they talk, they've given me their accolades, but the others have still been like, don't tell anybody. I'm like, okay, I won't.
I got to be Superman.
I need to be Superman. Because then, like, of course, some of them are friends of ours, and they start regurgitating the exact same thing I told them, and I'm like, why is that showing up on your thing, man? I don't mind, but I guess I do mind, because I'm like, you could just throw me a bone and just say, hey, my buddy Pajak.
You're too kind. I get told that quite often. I'm too kind as well, which I get it. It's part of it. I just realize that if that goes away, if the too kind part of me goes away, a lot of the other stuff that I really like about me goes away too. So I'll just keep it.
Yeah.
And if they feel like they need to do that, they can go ahead and do that. If not, I'll just keep doing my thing. But that is about the time, because I can remember we started to form our mastermind, right? Or somebody formed it and threw us in there. But we had those conversations because Wiscoat had just kind of been starting and going, and I didn't know how to scale or grow or what I should get insurance for or not. And if I hired employees, then what happens with work comp and like all this stuff. Like I did the basic ins and outs for the year, give that to my accountant, tell me how much to pay in taxes. Okay, cool. I can do that. That's base level. But it was when we started I wanted to be like everybody else that was in our mastermind. I was at the bottom. I wanted to move up there. So I had to start making moves and changes to do that. And I had guidance finally. The reason I didn't do it beforehand was because I didn't know. So I just left the fear of the unknown and not wanting to get into that world where I had to educate myself. I just wanted to do the work. I wanted to stay there. But once I got around you all and was in that mastermind, and I was not necessarily required, but it was kind of the undertone was, you better be making moves in here, or why are you even in here? And why am I spending my time listening to you if you're not advancing or not bringing anything to the table? And it wasn't necessarily that I had to educate anybody in that mastermind, but I better be show that I'm progressing because they're investing in me. Right. So when I started to see that stuff, that's when I started to pick your brain and pick everybody else's brain and started to make moves and build things. And I essentially got wiser, right, because of it. And you see me now. I'm a far cry from that guy that entered that group
Oh, yeah.
right, way back then, and that's because of my atmosphere being changed. It changed me. I can't even shut up right now. And back in the day, I didn't say anything in that group. I just waited to get called on, and then
Yeah.
prepared for my head to get lobbed off, right? And like, no, you can't do
Well,
that. That's not the right move. But
you see,
it
I think a
changes.
lot of us, that you bring that up, a lot of us, I think at some point in time always felt like, oh, I'm the low guy. Because I
Yeah,
had that feeling many times. I'm like, I'm looking at this is the problem with perception. We don't know the whole backstory of everybody
correct.
and where they're sitting. It's like there was times when I'm looking at,
Maybe that's the way it should have been. Maybe that's
I
the way it
think it
should
was
be.
because it's like we were kind of like none of us I don't think had a really good idea, clear idea of where we're at, but because of that there was no hierarchy
Uh-huh.
of like, well, this is the top guy and this
We
is the
just all
next
want to be
guy.
better.
It's
Hmm.
like we were constantly pushing each other, we were constantly challenging each other
Yeah,
in the best way, not in a deconstructive way. We were pushing each
correct.
other in an inspirational way.
I explained it when we were down at Equip Expo, and I just reiterated on my friend Brian Hess's podcast. It felt like, and still feels like, for me now that I've kind of went from our mastermind and your industry to creating our own here with a certain group of people, it feels like we're in this cylinder, and only thing that's in the cylinder is progression. And we all move up together, so it never really feels like we don't get to look around and be like, whoa, man, I'm crushing so and so
Yeah.
or whatever. It all we're doing ever is looking forward and up. But meanwhile, there's all these other people on the outside of the cylinder who, when we are able to step over and look back, or they look at us, we're like, whoa, we gained a lot of ground right there. But I
Hmm.
never do that. I always stay in the cylinder and just progress forward. And that's what it felt like we've done. If you think about everybody who's in that mastermind with us, they've all
Yep.
done really, really well. And most of them have all progressed in one way, shape, or form or another, right? And that's what's happening on our side too. So the mastermind side of it is very important. But during all that, we got educated and we learned, and I seen that firsthand start to come to fruition at Equip Expo with the progression. I came back. I haven't been there for a couple of years, and I see John with a line of people in front of him. I'm standing at the back waiting with Liz and Eli and whatnot. And Profits with Pajak is taking off. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. Just it was in March of this year, 2023. I had an opportunity to start the podcast, and the funny thing is, I didn't necessarily want to start the podcast right away. I was like,
Uh-huh.
why, but then I started thinking about it. it gives me that voice like I had in the early Facebook groups where I in retrospect, I hate that I lost all that content. We would do all these whiteboard Wednesdays and I would do all these videos and stuff, but you know how Facebook is. It's not like YouTube. I should have focused on YouTube. It would have still been around today
For sure.
and would have been accessible to everybody. But,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's a lot of that content's locked away behind a private group.
Yeah.
And I don't even participate in that group anymore. But
Right.
I started thinking about it, and I was talking with one of the CRMs that I deal with, or the CRM, not one of.
You
It's
can
a
say, you can
CRM
say
I deal
whatever you
with.
want on here.
Yeah, but you know, it's I was dealing with them, and they were like, "Hey, you know, we'd be interested if you did that. We'd be interested in helping you out." And I said,
Cool.
"Perfect." So I threw everything together really quick,
Yep.
and got a producer, got Mr. Producer doing everything,
Yep.
and after I had like this brainstorm of what I wanted it to be. And like my pilot episode pretty much lays it out. I want people to know not who I am, but what I can provide for them. And I've realized, just recently, I realized a lot of things. I'm not out there professing like if you listen to me, you're going to be successful.
Correct.
What I think, because of all the failures that I've had in my life, I'm not afraid to share them.
Yeah.
And it's more of that warning of like, listen, if you follow this, it will help you prevent some of these failures.
Correct.
It's just kind of, but even though that happens, like you're trying to prevent something, you still have to have painful memories. Those are the best teachers.
For sure.
Just like there's, something I always refer to. It's like, when you're a kid, you're trying to touch a stove while mom's making something. She's, don't touch the stove. And you don't know why. And then she turns her back, she catches you again. Don't touch that stove. And then like she finally like steps away to the sink or something, gives you enough time to really reach up there and grab, and then you get that searing pain in your hand, and you're like, ah.
Guess
Well,
what? I'm
now
not
you
going to do anymore.
Yeah, now you understand why mom keeps yelling at you, and you're like, ooh, okay, all right, I think I'm going to listen to mom now.
Yeah.
But a lot of times I really feel like a lot of the lessons, like whether I have a lot of solo episodes on there, and I'm not only am I trying to give good advice and things that have worked for us in the past, I give out a lot of gold nuggets, in my opinion. If not, there's always gold dust sprinkled on in there. And if you take all those things, you take that dust, you take those nuggets, and you put them in a crucible and you heat it up, eventually you could get yourself your own golden bar. Yeah, you got your golden ingot.
Yeah, baby.
And I think what I'm most trying to do is try to help people avoid the catastrophic failures that I experienced early on in life.
Yeah.
Because I noticed that my listener base is, there's a lot of new guys, but there's also guys that are, getting a bit older, and they can't afford to have a blow like that. They can't afford to get distracted.
Yeah. So where do people go to learn those types of things and whatnot with your content and what you do and what you put out?
Yeah. Profits with Pajak is available on all the podcast libraries. So, you can just type that in and I'll pop up. You'll see my fuzzy face. Hopefully it's a smile that makes you want to say, okay, I could get in with this guy. But other than that, like I have johnpajak.com, and that's a website. It's basically set up mostly for my coaching, and my program, my workshop, budgets, break evens, and bottom lines is there. That's how you sign up. You learn a little bit more about it there. You could sign up for a course there. Also, there's other trainings available.
Like
on
what type of things will we learn working with John Pajak?
Depending on which workshop you're
which
looking
avenue
at.
you go through. Yeah.
Yeah. I teach yard book training workshops too. So that's the CRM I use, the CRM that I help people with. I have a free Facebook group. It's called Yard Book Users on Facebook. And that if you're using that software, you could just go there and jump in the group, just answer the questions so I know you're not a bot. Or you're spammer or something like that. We had a lot of problems with that. I'm sure you got some problems, but
we do.
We got over 4,700 members in there now.
Wow!
And
really good job.
Yeah, thanks. And it's like I said, it's private, so you got to actually answer the questions. I know years ago by now I probably could have had a lot more people in there, but
Mm-hmm.
to keep the quality of the group up,
That's
I
true.
I
Yep.
have to
Ours has like
moderate it.
725, and a
Hmm.
lot of the bigger ones have like 6,000, and that's
Sure.
mainly because we just filter out who we want in and who we don't want in.
Yeah.
So
So, there's those resources too, but
cool.
essentially what I do is I help business owners predict what prices are going to be profitable for their services.
Okay.
And it doesn't have to just be in the lawn care, because I've helped people outside of the industry that, as long as there's numbers involved, I could figure it out.
Okay.
And because it's like, look at a lot of the stuff that we do, depending on if it's heavier equipment, say guys are doing roadways, blacktopping roadways, or redoing them,
Mm-hmm.
redoing whole streets. I have experience with that. I was on those jobs. I was there. I
Yeah,
know the
a lot of
steps.
it translates over. Like it's
Yeah,
literally we're selling a service, and
exactly.
that service covers an area, and you're doing so much per unit of whatever that
Hmm.
area is filled with. Like it's essentially just crossover for
Yeah.
the most part.
And I mean, and a lot of the same equipment is being used. Like, even if you're just like I say, say you're doing driveways and that's your bread and butter, and you're tearing them up and redoing all the blacktop on it. I understand that world. I came
Yep.
from that world,
Yeah.
and I know how to. I mean, when we were doing bidding for those multi-million-dollar jobs in the refinery and then the steel mill,
Yep.
we were either concrete or asphalt for the finished product when it came to the roadways and walkways.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Cool.
yeah, I got that
So
down.
johnpajak.com, we can check that type of stuff out
Hmm.
and see what's all going on there. If you had one overarching piece of advice, right, and it doesn't necessarily have to be on business. I know everybody tries to get that nugget out of everybody every time. It could just be about life too, John, because you and I just talk a lot about life.
Hmm.
What would it be? What do you think is the overall feel of what John Pajak has learned? Because you speak a lot about a lot of different things, right? The struggles of the past mold you into what you want to be. Educating yourself and getting different experiences help mold you to be who you should be and whatnot. But if there was one overall theme and one overall piece of advice, that if you were John Pajak speaking to the people he loves before he
Hmm.
exits this world, what would it be?
Don't let failure keep you down.
Mm,
Failure is usually one of the best like teachers that you could ever have.
mm,
The thing is, you have to have that motivation to just not be, you know what, be fearless about it. Like, it
mm.
sucks. I mean, I could talk like a tough guy right now and say, it's, you get knocked down, you get right back up, blah blah blah.
Yeah,
I
that
understand
sounds
it.
like a
It's,
tough guy.
yeah,
Mhm.
well, it's when I could throw my macho man voice in, but no, we could, when you fail, it's devastating to you at that time. Sometimes it took me years to go back into lawn care, because
Yeah,
after I failed at it, I thought I was never going back.
yeah,
But once allow yourself to fail, don't, yeah, look at it and realize where you can improve. Like,
mm,
identify what went wrong,
mm,
and then come back and go, I'm going to do this differently.
yep,
And then if that happens again, don't be discouraged. If it happens, it's not three strikes and you're out. Okay. Even with turf tamer, I have failed, not as bad, but I still had failures. Like, we were trying to get into another service. It didn't work out. I lost a bunch of money on it, but the lesson I learned is like, okay, we have to do things a little bit different here.
yeah,
And we have to keep pushing through. And
cool.
that's the key. It's like, don't be, everybody talks about success as that's the goal.
Hmm.
I'm like, yeah, it is. There's success, but when you get to success, then you're always going to be like, the grass looks greener over there. I'm going to go over there now, and I'm going to
Yeah,
succeed over
you got to
there.
define what success is for you,
Right.
right? Because if
And
you're using other people's definition, you might be chasing something that's not even satisfying at all for
exactly,
you.
it might not be possible.
Yeah,
So
or
just,
possible.
just focus on what you're doing.
Yeah,
If you fail, get back up, dust yourself off, and learn from that experience. And now it's become a valuable lesson to you.
mm,
and apply that to the future. And again, sometimes it might take you a long time to get back on track, but just keep going. If you're passionate about something, don't let a couple failures knock you down and take you out of the game. You're going to hate yourself for it afterwards. It's just like I told my wife, I said, I think I'm going to start a lawn care business. She's like, you have a really good job. And I'm like, yeah, I know. It makes a lot of money, but I got to do this.
Yeah.
She's like, okay, let's go.
Man, I appreciate you being on today, John, spending time with us. We try to stop, you and I, but there's times where we've spoke all through the night, all through the day, and realized that we couldn't get pried away. And there's always just so much there. There's always so much context, content. We always take time to catch up, and your insights and perception of life for me have been invaluable. And be able to share somebody who is like-minded in a lot of those aspects as well has been invaluable to me. So I really appreciate your friendship throughout the years. I appreciate the ongoing friendship. I love seeing you do your thing and be happy. That makes me very, very happy deep down inside. So thank you so much again for joining us today.
Thank you, Marvin. And we got to get you on Profits with Pajak. That way we could just kind of keep the conversation rolling.
If you're gonna don't do this episode, call me up. This the wrong way. Cool. Yep. Send that on over, man.
Absolutely.
So, I really appreciate it. Thanks so much. A lot of this content that John has spoke about is there at johnpajak.com, if not all of it. A lot of the earlier content from this episode about Mastermind and our Mastermind group is parlayed over to the Blacktop Banter Success Group. And you can find information on the Blacktop Banter Success Group, which is a group of contractors that have melded together and made their mastermind. We join for a few calls each month. We have a 24/7 chat group. A lot of our partners who are vendors within the asphalt industry offer a discount on their products, services, whatever that may be, to members of the Blacktop Banter Success Group. So pop on over there, blacktopbanter.com. Take a look at that. See if that fits you. If so, there's a button there to inquire. That would come to me. We'll talk. We'll get it going. There are testimonials there already from some of the members that have been in there and what it's done for them. Also, we're very excited to announce Between the Lines. It's the Blacktop Banter's premier only newsletter, and we've been getting asked to have this thing come out for a while. You'll find content in there written by contractors, a lot of who are creators here at Blacktop Banter, but also you'll find some content in there from some of our sponsors and advertisers about their products, what they do as well. And you'll find any links to anything that we think would be of value to you as the reader there on Between the Lines, Blacktop Banter's newsletter. And that's it for today's episode. I really want to thank John Pajak with Profits with Pajak for coming on, joining us today. And you learned a little bit about John today. He's got a little bit of blacktop background. So for myself, here, Marvin at Blacktop Banter, and for John Pajak, this is Blacktop Banter, and we speak asphalt. Peace. Hey everybody, Marvin here from Blacktop Banter, and if you enjoy the podcast and what we've been bringing to the industry, you can support us through a one-time or recurring donation at blacktopbanter.com. There we have a support tab. You click that and choose your path from there. If you listen on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please do us a favor and leave a review there for us as well. As always, we speak asphalt, and thanks for your support. This episode of Blacktop Banter is brought to you by Crafco, the world's leading manufacturer of packaged pavement preservation materials and equipment for the asphalt industry. Learn more at crafco.com.